I'm Brooke from Teach Over the Rainbow, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make one of these pencil snow globe tumblers. When I offered these on my website and shared it on my social media, I had a lot of people reaching out to me asking if I could do a tutorial. There are other crafters that make this tumbler. I'm not the first one that came up with this idea, but I figured why not give it a try. Before I get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and share. All the engagement helps. Everything that I'm going to be using today in this tutorial is going to be linked in the description. So let's get started.
The first thing you're going to do is sand your tumbler and your top with a 220 grit sandpaper. You don't have to do it very hard, just do it very lightly. And don't worry about the scratches that are going to be on the tumbler. Once you apply your epoxy, those will all disappear. Next, we need to apply tape around the threads of the top so that we don't get any spray paint on that portion of the top. I use Color Shot's Farmer's Daughter to spray paint the top, and now that my top is spray painted, we can go ahead and glitter the top portion. I use CCDIY UV Resin to adhere the glitter to the top portion of my tumbler. Once it's on your topper, you can go ahead and smooth it out with your finger. Make sure you get all of the sides and edges. You can torch it so that you can get all the bubbles out, and then you can apply your glitter. This pink glitter is Wednesdays from Peachy Olive Glitters. Once you have your glitter on there, you can put it under UV light. Once it's cured, you're going to want to add another coat of UV resin to the topper. Once you have a good coat of your UV resin on there, you can put it back under the UV light. Once that second coat has cured, it's going to be rough and jaggedy around the edges. So you're going to want to use that 220 grit sandpaper again and smooth out all of the edges as well as the top. Sanding this will allow your final coat on this topper to make the top buttery smooth. When you're done sanding, go ahead and wipe it down with a towel and get all of the dust off of it. Then you can apply your third and final coat of your UV resin to your topper. I use a very generous coat on this one, and then I torch it after to get all the bubbles. And as you can see, it's nice and smooth before I put it under my UV light. Now that the top has cured, you can see that it's nice and smooth and doesn't have any jagged edges on it, and we can move on to the tumbler portion. To make the hole in the snow globe portion of my tumbler, I use this hot fix tool. It's used to adhere rhinestones. However, this works great to start your hole for your tumbler because if you don't and you just use a drill, sometimes it can crack, and this helps so that you don't damage your tumbler when you're trying to make the hole. So all you're going to do is use a hot fix tool and you're going to get your hole started. And then I like to use my 5/16 drill bit to go ahead and make the hole wide enough so that my plug will fit in there. Now that we have our hole done, we can go ahead and start putting the glitter inside of the snow globe tumbler. I like to use a piece of tape and just fold it over halfway. Then I put it around the bottom portion of my tumbler so that when I am putting glitter in there, it doesn't spill over the sides and I'm not wasting a bunch of glitter. There is a reusable silicone sleeve that basically acts the same thing as this tape. I don't have one, but I plan on getting one because they are pretty useful. Next, you can start inserting your glitter inside of the tumbler. The first glitter that I use is this yellow from Michael's Arts and Crafts. In order to get your glitter inside of your tumbler and make it go 1,000 times faster, do yourself a favor and get one of these massage guns. It is going to save you so much time and headache. I do about 3 inches of the yellow glitter from Michael's, and then my second glitter that I like to add is a little bit of this Diggory from Peachy Olive Glitters. And then again, I use my massage gun to get all of that glitter inside of the tumbler. Once you have all the glitter inside of the snow globe tumbler, you can go ahead and remove the tape and brush off the excess off the top. Next, you can add your solution inside of the snow globe tumbler. There's lots of different options that you can choose to use as a solution inside of your snow globe tumbler. I like to use 50% glycerin and 50% distilled water. You cannot use tap water and you cannot use bottled water because eventually that will get mold in it. You must use distilled water. Adding the solution inside of the snow globe tumbler is this part of the process where you need to be the most patient because you're going to need to add some solution and then shake it, and add some and then shake it. Otherwise, your glitter is going to get all clumped up at the bottom and it's going to be really hard to get it all mixed up. So make sure you add a little bit, shake it, add a little bit, and shake it again. Once you have your solution in there and you've shaken it all up, you're going to need to let your tumbler sit overnight so all of your air bubbles can get to the top of your tumbler like this one has here. You can see there's a big space there and it's all filled with air. Now we're going to need to rock it back and forth to get any residual bubbles that are at the bottom and get them to come to the top. And at that point, you can add a little bit more solution to top off your tumbler and make sure there's as little air in there as possible. Once you have it topped off, you're going to take that remaining air bubble and place it over the hole where you inserted the glitter at. Then you need to clean the bottom of the tumbler with alcohol to make sure there's no vegetable glycerin that could be on the bottom of that tumbler, because it's going to make your epoxy a little bit difficult to adhere and it could possibly lift, and we don't want that. So make sure that it's free and clear of any water or vegetable glycerin. I use these 5/16 plugs to plug the hole of my tumblers. If you are using a Starbucks tumbler, you may need to sand down this plug just a smidge. If you're using a dupe cup, you shouldn't have a problem, but the Starbucks tumblers tend to be a little bit too short for this plug. So you just sand it down a little bit and you're good to go. Making sure that your air pocket is right underneath that hole, and then you can push the plug in. I like to leave about a fingernail's width space in between the bottom of the tumbler and the plug, because I like that UV resin to get up underneath the lip of that plug. So I'm going to put a little bit of UV resin just right around that plug hole, making sure that that UV resin seeps underneath that little lip that I left there. Then I use my silicone tool to make sure that it gets up under that lip and I get a good seal. Then torch it to make sure you get out any bubbles. As you can see, I have my UV lights propped up on boxes so that my tumblers can fit up under there without having any issues or worrying about me knocking them over. Now you can go ahead and cure your UV resin that you put just over the plug. Now that it's done curing, you can go ahead and use your UV resin and fill in that bottom section of the tumbler to make sure that your plug and your bottom is completely sealed. I'm going to use my silicone tool to make sure that it's spread evenly, and then I'm going to torch out any bubbles and put it back under the UV light. After it's been under the UV light for about 2 minutes, you can see that it's nice and flat and cured really well. And when I shake it, there are very little bubbles that are moving around in there, and that is your goal. The next step is mapping out the different sections of the pencil tumbler. This top part is going to be the black part, and we don't want that spray painted, so we're going to go ahead and cover that section by using a 1-inch tape to mark out the bottom part, and then we're going to cover the top section of it. Next, you're going to need to add the zigzag portion to your cup. The section in between the 1-inch tape and the zigzag is what will be spray painted brown. So I found this tapered zigzag on Creative Fabrica, and I just start it and make sure that my tips are evenly spaced from the top to the portion of the 1-inch tape. And then I just wrap it around the rest of my cup and line it up with the other side. Next, we need to map out the top portion. We're going to have 2 sections. The top section is going to be pink and the bottom section is going to be silver. So again, I'm using my 1-inch tape to map out the top section that will be pink, and then the bottom section underneath that will be silver. Then you can pull off that top section because that is the part we're going to go spray paint pink. Next, we're going to go ahead and spray paint that zigzag section brown, and I use Skinny Dip by Color Shot. I also take a piece of paper and wrap it around my cup for the portions that are not going to be spray painted. It just protects that part of the cup. You can move on to spray painting the pink part of the cup. I use Farmer's Daughter by Color Shot, and I also put my cup on the table so that I can avoid getting spray paint inside the cup. Now we can move on to glittering the tumbler. I use CCDIY UV resin to adhere the glitter to my tumbler. Because I make so many tumblers at one time, this makes the process a lot faster. You can use your choice of glue, however, the UV resin does make it a lot faster. Once you have your UV resin on there, you can go ahead and apply your glitter. I use Wednesdays from Peachy Olive Glitters. Once you're done coating your UV resin with glitter, make sure that you peel off the tape and then you can put it under your UV light. Next, you're going to move on to glittering the zigzag section of the tumbler. Again, I'm using the CCDIY UV resin to adhere the glitter to the tumbler. For the zigzag portion of the tumbler, I'm using Ophelia from Peachy Olive Glitters. After that, make sure you peel off your zigzag vinyl before you put it under your UV light. If you don't, you're going to have a very hard time getting it off. Once that's off, put it under your UV light. The next step is covering the pink glitter with tape so that you can do the silver portion. I put this tape over the pink part because I don't want any of the silver glitter getting in there with the pink. Once that's covered, I'm going to use 1-inch tape to map out the 1-inch section for the silver portion of the tumbler. Then you're going to add a guide tape on the bottom portion of that 1-inch tape. Once that guide tape is on there, you can pull that 1-inch tape off because that is the portion that is going to be glittered silver. Then I'm going to apply the CCDIY UV resin to adhere the silver glitter to that portion of the tumbler. I'm using Peachy Olive Glitters 357 Magnum for this section. Once you're done getting the glitter on there, you can go ahead and peel the tape off just like you did before. And then cure it under your UV light. Then you can move on to the last section, which is the lead part, the black part of the pencil. You can do this two ways. You can either tape off the bottom portion and spray paint it. I'm using black from Pop of Colors from CCDIY. This paint is really pigmented and it dries really fast. This is why I'm using this instead of spray painting. Then I like to tape out the bottom portion underneath the black so that I don't get any black glitter in my tan glitter. Again, I'm using CCDIY UV resin to adhere the glitter to that last section of my tumbler. The glitter that I'm using is a combination of Batman and 357 Magnum from Peachy Olive Glitters. Then you can put it under your UV light. Now that all the actual glittering is done, you can seal in your glitter with CCDIY's Quick Coat. Then you're going to put your first layer of epoxy. I used Artist Resin from CCDIY. After your cup has cured, you're going to want to clean the rim of the cup because this is all going to be gunky and rough, and you're not going to want to send that to your customer like that. So go ahead and scrape the top of it with an X-Acto knife, and then you're going to need to sand the edge of it. The bottom portion as well is going to be extremely rough, so you're also going to want to sand that section as well. You don't want things to look rough or unfinished when you send them to your customer. Now we can move on to my favorite part of the cup, which is trimming out the cup. These came from Michaels. They're a glittered vinyl. I got black, silver, and brown. The first trim that I put on is the black. I just place it on there and roll the cup around and then trim it with my X-Acto knife. The next trim I put on is the brown. These are going to be the vertical stripes for the pencil. When you're putting these on, just place it at the tip of the zigzag, hold the trim straight up, and then slide your finger up. Don't think too much about it. If you do, it's going to come out crooked and you're going to have a hard time with these. So just put your finger on the tip of the zigzag where the trim is and then slide your finger up. Then you can move on to trimming out the zigzag portion of the pencil. All you're going to do is put it on the corner at the bottom, go up, and then use your X-Acto knife to trim it straight. The last trim you're going to do is the silver portion. I like to put my first silver trim underneath the silver so it's covering the tops of those brown trims. You're just going to place your trim and then roll your cup just like you did with the black one, and then repeat it for the section that is in between the silver and the pink. After that, I add an oval with black vinyl and then a number 2 with this silver vinyl that I use for the silver trim. You don't have to do this, but it looks cute. The last two things that I'm going to do before I put it back on the turner for a coat of epoxy is personalize it with my customer's name, and then I'm going to add my logo sticker onto the bottom of the tumbler. Now that my final coat of epoxy is cured, I'm going to go ahead and prepare my cup for my customer. I always insert a care card into the cup, put the cover on, and I include these super cute notebook paper straws from Happy Fox Supply Company. I'll link that in the description. These cups are definitely a labor of love, but they come out absolutely gorgeous, and all of my customers really like them. They always sell out really fast.
Alrighty friends, I hope that tutorial helps. If you have any questions or if you're unsure about anything, leave me a comment below. Again, everything that I used today is in the description box along with links and discount codes. Happy crafting!